Anderssen, playing white, pushes the pawn right in front of his king forward 2 squares. Think of it like opening the main doors, letting his pieces get ready for action. It was a very common, very classic way to start back then, trying to control the center of the board.
And black, Feli responds in kind. Just mirrors white's move, pushing his own king's pawn 2 squares. Solid, totally standard. But then Anderssen, on his second move, does something really audacious. He pushes the pawn in front of his other starting pawn, the fifth pawn, 2 squares forward. This is the famous king's gambit.
A gambit, right. That's where you offer something up.
Exactly. You sacrifice a piece, usually just a pawn, early on, hoping your opponent takes it and falls behind in development, or maybe their king gets exposed. And the king's gambit, oh, that was the most aggressive opening of the Romantic era. Anderssen is offering a pawn right away to grab space in the center and open up lines for his pieces to attack. He's basically saying, let's fight.
And black takes him up on it. He captures white's offered pawn. There's that old chess saying, right? The best way to refute a gambit is to accept it. So black takes the material. White's already down a pawn after just 2 moves, but you can almost feel the tension on the board already. Anderssen gave up material, but he's setting the pace.
Definitely.
So the gambit's accepted. White keeps up the pressure. He moves his bishop out to a square where it immediately puts pressure on black's side near the king. This variation is called the bishop's gambit, and it's even more provocative, really. This move almost dares black to put white's king in check, which sounds crazy, right? Letting your king get attacked on purpose.
It does sound risky, yeah. And black does it. He moves his queen out and gives check to white's king. Remember, a check means the king's under direct attack and has to deal with it immediately, move, block, or capture the attacker.
So white's king is forced to move.
Right. It moves forward 1 square
Yeah,
to F1.
right.
But here's the thing. It's not actually that bad for white. The king is, maybe surprisingly, quite safe there. And this introduces a really key idea in chess, tempo. Think of tempo as getting a free turn. Because black moved his queen out so early, white will soon develop his knight, attack the queen, and force it to move again. That gives white a tempo, a free move, essentially.
Ah, okay. So black got the check, but white gets development time later.
Exactly. Black could have just developed a knight, a much more standard move, but he went for the immediate, flashy check instead.
So white's king steps forward to F1. He can't castle anymore, that special king safety move, which is usually a big downside. But Anderssen seems completely unfazed. It's like he's saying, forget king safety in the usual sense, my attack is everything.
And black, maybe still thinking about grabbing material, makes another pawn move. This one actually sacrifices another pawn. He's trying to get his own bishop out, but it wasn't the best way to do it. White's bishop takes that pawn and stays active, while black's bishop doesn't end up on a great square. There was a better pawn push available for black.
It shows how easy it is to just grab material without thinking about the bigger picture, I guess.
Oh, for sure. It's a common trap.
And Anderssen, he doesn't miss a beat. He snaps up that second pawn sacrifice with his bishop, so now he's down 2 pawns. But his pieces feel more active somehow, and black's queen is already looking a bit awkwardly placed out there.
Now, black does make a good developing move. He brings his knight out to F6. It attacks white's central pawn, eyes some good squares. He's trying to use his extra pawns and get his pieces into the game.
White responds immediately, developing his own knight to F3. And this move does 2 things at once. He developed a piece, and he does it with tempo, that free turn idea again, because the knight attacks black's queen.
Right, so black's queen has to move again. It retreats to H6. From there, it's safer, but it's also defending that pawn on F4 that black captured way back at the start. That F4 pawn is actually quite important. If white manages to win it back, it often gives white a really strong position. So black wants to hang on to it.
Okay, so we're moving into the middle part of the game now. The pieces are coming out. Anderssen makes a slightly quieter move here, pushing his d-pawn just 1 square to defend his e4 pawn. Seemed a bit defensive.
It was a bit passive, yeah.
Yeah.
It defended the pawn, but that pawn wasn't really in danger yet. And interestingly, Anderssen actually missed a trick here. He could have pushed his other d-pawn, d4, which could have led to something called a poison pawn trap. That's where you let your opponent take a pawn, but it leads them into trouble.
Ah, so even the greats miss things sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in these complex, sharp positions. But he still found a way.
Okay, so black sees his chance. He hops his knight forward to h5. This threatens to check white's king and attack the rook at the same time, winning the exchange or quality a rook for a knight. That would be a big material gain for black.
Anderssen responds by moving his own knight to h4. He's trying to reposition it, maybe eye some attacking squares himself, but honestly, it wasn't the best spot for it. A stronger move would have been to move his rook over to g1.
Hmm.
That would have stopped black's threat and maybe started some threats along that file later.
But because he didn't, black jumps on it. Queen to g5. This hits both white's knight on h4 and the bishop on b5. A fork. That looks really bad for white.
It does look bad.
Yeah.
But white's response here is just brilliant, partly because it's forced. Knight to f5. It's the only move that saves both pieces from the queen's attack. Any other move, and white loses material. Pretty cool defense under pressure.
Wow. Okay. So black then pushes his c-pawn forward, c6. This attacks white's bishop, forces it back, and helps control the center. Looks like a solid, useful move for black.
You'd think so, right? But actually, it has a surprising downside. By forcing the bishop back, it kind of helps white solve a slight awkwardness with his pieces on that side of the board. It's subtle, but these small things add up.
Huh. Okay, now Anderssen plays another pawn push, g4. This immediately causes big problems for black's knight on h5 and puts pressure near the queen again. And here's the tricky point. Black can't take this pawn en passant. That special pawn capture wouldn't work here because it would leave his queen hanging completely undefended.
Exactly. White is playing very forcefully, and his next move reinforces this. Rook to g1. He's literally just letting black capture his bishop on b5. He doesn't even defend it. Why? Because his own threat, pushing the h-pawn to h4 next, trapping black's knight or causing more queen problems, is just too strong to ignore. Attack over material, again.
And black, maybe feeling the heat, maybe wanting the piece, makes a massive mistake here. He takes the bishop. Pawn takes bishop on b5.
Yeah, this was probably the critical error. He collapses under pressure, as commentators might say. Taking that bishop gave white exactly the tempo, that crucial extra move he needed to launch a decisive attack against the queen.
What should he have done instead?
Well, computer analysis suggests pushing either the h-pawn, h5, or the d-pawn, d5 would have kept the game much more complicated. Probably still favoring white, but not losing immediately like this. But finding those defensive moves with your queen under fire,
Yeah.
very tough.
So white wastes no time. Pawn to h4. Attacking the queen, where can it even go?
Very few places. It retreats to g6. That's pretty much the only safe square.
But white keeps hammering away. Pawn to h5, attacking the queen again. Relentless pressure.
And the queen has to retreat again, this time to g5. It's being chased all over the place, completely pulled away from defending the king.
Now white brings his own queen into the attack. Queen to f3. The idea looks like capturing black's f4 pawn soon, maybe with the bishop, and potentially trapping black's queen. The net is definitely closing.
Black is forced into a really sad retreat. His knight on h5 has to go all the way back to g8, just to let the queen escape capture by the bishop.
Then white captures the pawn on f4 with his bishop. Bishop takes f4, and guess what? It attacks the queen again.
Black finally saves his queen, moving it to f6, and it even attacks one of white's pawns in return. So let's recap the material for a second. Black is up a bishop and a couple of pawns.
Sounds like black should be winning easily.
Materially, yes, but positionally. White is completely winning. His pieces are incredibly active, laser-focused on black's king, while black's pieces are mostly passive or stuck on the back rank. It's a classic example of activity trumping material count. An active piece is worth so much more.
White now develops his last minor piece, knight to c3, bringing another attacker into the fray, and it immediately threatens to jump into d5, a really powerful square right in black's camp. Anderssen is just pouring everything forward.
Black tries to get his bishop out, finally. Bishop to c5, attacking white's rook on g1. But it's just too slow. Development now feels almost irrelevant because the attack is already crashing through.
Okay, strap yourselves in. This is where the game gets its name. This is the really legendary part. White plays knight to d5. It looks like he's just sacrificing another pawn. He's letting black's queen take the pawn on b2, which also attacks white's rook on a1. Why would he do this?
It's an absolutely brilliant conception. Anderssen is deliberately luring black's queen away to grab that pawn. Also, he can draw black's king into a deadly net woven by his bishops and knights. He sees a checkmating pattern forming and is willing to throw more material away to achieve it.
Black really doesn't have much choice, does he? He takes the pawn, queen takes b2. Now he's attacking the rook on a1. Materially, black is way, way ahead now.
Looks that way on the surface.
And now, Anderssen makes the move that defines the immortal game. Bishop to d6. This move blocks black's queen from defending the king side, but it also offers up, well, it seems to offer up both of white's rooks. Black can take the bishop, revealing an attack on the rook on g1, and the queen is already attacking a rook on a1.
Huh.
This is insane. sacrificing both rooks.
This is the heart of the legend. The sheer spectacle of it is breathtaking, giving up potentially both rooks for the attack. But here's a crucial point modern analysis shows us.
It wasn't the only way.
Exactly. While it's incredibly beautiful and leads to a forced win, it wasn't strictly necessary. White actually had a simpler winning move, just moving the attacked rook on g1 to e1. That also wins.
But Anderssen went for the fireworks.
They absolutely did, and black makes the fatal mistake. He takes a bishop on d6, which then allows him to take the rook on g1 later. Bishop takes g1. The crucial defensive idea, unbelievably hard to see, was not to take the second rook. But black, caught up in the attack and the material gain, takes it.
Wow. So white continues the attack. Pawn to e5. Another spectacular pawn move, cutting off black's queen completely from the defense of the king side, specifically the g7 square. It seals off the queen.
Black grabs more material. Queen takes the now undefended rook on a1, delivering check along the way. Materially, black is now up a queen, 2 rooks, and a bishop against white's. Well, not much.
Seems impossible for white.
But then comes black's final, deadly error, as it's often called. He moves his knight from g8 to a6. It seems like a developing move, but it fatally blocks his own king's escape route. There was one incredibly difficult, almost computer-like defensive move involving moving the bishop back to a6 instead, which might have held on, but finding that under this pressure, nearly impossible for a human.
And white pounces. Knight takes pawn on g7, delivering check. Knight takes g7, check, forcing black's king to move again.
Not only does white grab the pawn, but the king is forced onto d8. It's shoved deeper into white's control. White now dominates all the dark squares around the king. Black's king is cornered, exposed, with nowhere safe to run.
And now, the grand finale. White plays queen to f6, check. An absolutely fantastic move, sacrificing the queen.
It's one of the most stunning and unique checkmating sequences in all of chess history. Anderssen saw this beauty from moves away.
Black has no choice at all, right? He has to take the queen.
Absolutely forced. Knight takes queen on f6. It's the only legal move to get out of check.
And then,
Yeah.
the final, beautiful, quiet move, bishop to e7, checkmate. What a finish. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What material, maybe comfort or certainty, or just doing things the way they've always been done, what material are you sometimes hesitant to sacrifice in your own life or work or projects that might actually be holding you back from a bigger, more decisive kind of win?